It was an ordinary morning until her message appeared. Going away with my boss. My phone vibrated in my hand, and my heart skipped a beat. The words were casual, almost careless, but their meaning was devastating. I stared at the screen, trying to process them logically. For weeks, subtle warning signs had been piling up. Secret calls, evasive answers, sudden work trips. I felt anger rising, but I knew this was a turning point. One impulsive reaction could destroy everything, or I could take control. My mind raced, weighing options and consequences, and then, with deliberate calm, I made a decision that would change everything in ways she could never predict. I grabbed my coat and keys, and didn't hesitate. I didn't call her, didn't reply, and didn't raise my voice. Instead, I drove straight to her office. 10 minutes felt like an eternity as I drove, my thoughts carefully balanced between strategy and calculated risk. I had watched her patterns long enough to anticipate her moves. By the time I arrived, she believed she had complete freedom, that nothing could interfere with her plans. That confidence would soon shatter. I parked discreetly nearby, watching the building, quietly planning my next step. This wasn't about confrontation. It was about timing, impact, and undeniable truth. Inside her office, she was already laughing with her boss. There was a casual intimacy in their body language that confirmed my worst fears. Normally, anger would have taken over, and I would have stormed in, yelling and making a scene. But that day, patience and planning were my allies. I slipped a small envelope onto her desk, something she would notice only after they left. Inside were documents I had been gathering, emails, receipts, and proof of every lie and manipulation over the past months. The timing had to be exact. One wrong move, and the effect would vanish. I smiled to myself. She had underestimated me, and that would be her greatest mistake. I left quietly, unseen, and returned home. From there, I tracked her movements, ensuring she didn't realize I already knew everything. She called later, pretending innocence, asking if I knew about her trip. I stayed calm, responding vaguely, hiding every trace of awareness. The plan was simple but devastating. Let her continue believing she was in control, then let the truth strike at the perfect moment. Within minutes, she and her boss left, confident their secret getaway was secure, unaware that the groundwork for their undoing was already set. By late afternoon, she returned, expecting everything to be normal. But the envelope I left in her office had already begun its work. Her boss received calls from HR and legal advisors. Evidence of inappropriate conduct was now in the hands of those who could enforce consequences. She walked through the door, unaware the documents had been scanned and submitted electronically while she was gone. I greeted her calmly, as if nothing had happened. There was no shouting, no confrontation, only a quiet, cold certainty in my eyes that unsettled her instantly. She sensed, before a single word was spoken, that something had shifted forever. Her boss panicked when the first email alerts arrived, realizing his carefully hidden actions were now exposed. The casual confidence of the morning vanished, replaced by fear and desperation. My wife, who believed she was in control, froze as the dominoes began to fall. HR contacted her directly, outlining serious consequences for both of them. The betrayal she assumed would remain invisible was now documented, magnified, and undeniable. The shift in power was complete. I didn't need to speak. Her own recklessness was undoing her faster than anger ever could. I watched quietly as she tried to salvage the situation, stumbling through excuses and lies. But the evidence was precise, thorough, and overwhelming. Every attempt to manipulate the story failed. Her boss scrambled, emails flooding in, legal threats looming. The air around her shifted from arrogance to panic. I remained calm, observing, feeling the weight of justice delivered without confrontation. The shock on her face was more satisfying than any dramatic argument could have been. By evening, the fallout reached her colleagues, many of whom had suspected but never confirmed her behavior. Whispers turned into acknowledgement. Colleagues now knew the trip had been anything but professional. Her credibility and trust evaporated instantly, and I saw the full impact of my calculated choice. She had gambled with her reputation, her career, and her relationships, believing she could outsmart everyone. Instead, one calm, precise decision dismantled everything within hours. Sitting at home, I reflected on the power of patience and strategy. There was no shouting, no confrontation, only careful planning, timing, and execution. My wife and her boss had underestimated me, convinced they could manipulate circumstances without consequence. They were wrong. The consequences were immediate, undeniable, and irreversible. One simple choice to stay calm, gather evidence, and act strategically changed the course of our lives. The lesson was clear: control and composure often prevail over anger and impulsiveness. In the days that followed, the story of their failed getaway spread quietly but effectively. Her boss faced professional and personal fallout, and my wife's carefully constructed image collapsed completely. I never had to confront them directly. The evidence and the consequences did all the work. The shock, humiliation, and collapse of their secret world were complete. In the quiet aftermath, I understood something essential. True power doesn't lie in immediate retaliation, but in patient, calculated action that allows consequences to unfold naturally. And in the end, everyone around us, including them, was left stunned beyond belief.